Joining us today is Granville Recreation District Trustee and former college basketball official, John Klaus. John, thank you for taking some time to join us.
Sure. You're welcome.
Thanks for having me, Andy. And indeed, I'm a former college basketball official, but I do have a recreation background. I have both an undergraduate degree from the University of Kansas and a master's degree from the University of Maryland, both in rec management. I spent the early part of my career in campus recreation, worked at the University of Illinois, University of Virginia, and then finally moved to the Columbus area and was an athletic director in Columbus, and then I worked in public parks and rec in a job that's real similar to your job and AJ's job. I'm no longer in recreation, but I stay connected and stay involved through my position on the board, and I've been on that board like you mentioned. Well, I don't know if you mentioned it, but regardless, I've been on the board about 8.5 years, and I really value my time on that board. So I've been asked to speak about expectations from a parent perspective at our youth sporting events, and it's something that I've been around a long time. I did officiate, as Andy referenced, college basketball for many years, but I also officiated high school and college football. I umpired baseball, a little bit of semi-pro, which might be loose, but since none of you were there, it was semi-pro baseball, and a lot of high school baseball, Legion baseball, etc. So I have a vast background in officiating. And as a volunteer coach, I have 3 boys. They've all aged out of the GRD programs, but I would think over the course of the years I probably coached at least 20, 25 teams, baseball, very little soccer, a lot of basketball, and enjoyed my time. In fact, the 3 best youth sports stories I have are ones that I would share with you now. One would be as a T-ball coach, and any of us that coach T-ball, I believe, when we get to the pearly gates, will be given extra credit for putting up with the T-ball players. So that's just my own theory. I'm hoping I'm right on that one. Anyway, coaching T-ball, it's early in the season. I'm on my knee. I'm coaching them up, and I'm going to dispel my wisdom on them. And little Robbie says, unprompted, "I have dinosaur sheets." And I thought, what? I have dinosaur sheets. Which, of course, the avalanche that follows that is, I have Scooby-Doo sheets, and I have Spider-Man sheets, and it was completely, the practice went off the rails early when Bobby, whoever that was, talked about the dinosaur sheets. But that's how it goes. And we talk about that in my household when somebody completely switches topics. To this day, that was with my oldest boy, who's 22. That was when he was 5. So that was 17 years ago, and we still reference when somebody, whether it be on television or in our personal lives, completely changes topics. My wife and I will look at each other and say, "I have dinosaur sheets," and it's just a running joke. One of the phrases that was coined early in our household was undefeatable. And of course, one of my children was on a baseball team, and we were about 3/4 way through the season, and they were undefeatable. So again, we use that for a pretty regular basis when somebody's undefeated. And then one of my favorite stories of all was my man Miles, when we were coaching. I was coaching 3rd and 4th grade basketball, and Miles had not had a basket the entire year, and it was actually a pretty decent shooter in practice. He might say just never had the opportunity to make a basket in the game, but regardless, we're in the playoffs, and lo and behold, in the 2nd quarter, Miles hits his first 14-foot jumper, first bucket of the year, and he's smiling ear to ear, running down the court, looking at his parents, and couldn't have been more proud. The next trip down, Miles hits his 2nd bucket of the year, and he's flabbergasted at this point. He's barely touching the ground, and you can imagine what he felt like when he made his 3rd basket within the same quarter of the game. The only 6 points he scored all season, and the other team called a timeout because they couldn't guard Miles. And we come off to the sidelines, and I said, "How does that feel?" And he says, "It's like I'm on a rainbow." And my assistant coach says, "Did he just say it's like it's on a rainbow?" Like he's on a rainbow. And he did, and we laughed, and we still laugh about that. When I still play a little basketball, when I hit 2 or 3 in a row, I kind of feel like I'm on a rainbow. So, but notice, none of those stories have anything to do with screaming at an official. It's not screaming at an umpire, screaming at a soccer ref, screaming at a football, basketball, field hockey, lacrosse. It's not screaming at an official. And when I was, one of my stops as a recreation professional, I worked at the University of Virginia. And outside of Charlottesville, where I lived, John Grisham, the author, had lived in that area. And he opened up a park called Cove Creek Park. And he opened it up, and it was basically his own version of a rec department. And he just ran baseball, sports guy, baseball guy. And the rules at John Grisham's Cove Creek Park were no yelling. We're not yelling at coaches, we're not yelling at kids, and we're darn sure not yelling at umpires. Well, I was fortunate enough to umpire there, and pardon the Field of Dream reference, but honestly it was like umpiring in heaven. It was a beautiful setting, the mountains were there, the fields were pristine because money really was an obstacle for a guy like that to build a nice park, and then nobody was screaming. So what a wonderful circumstance that was. And the truth is, there's no reason it can't be that way here. And our expectations are pretty similar to that. We shouldn't be screaming at kids and coaches, and certainly not officials. I can tell you the reason, in my opinion, most of these officials are working is really at some level just to love the game. I can't tell you that they don't enjoy the extra money, but I can assure you they're not getting rich. So it's an avocation, it's not their livelihood. For the most part, I would confidently say they're doing it out of the goodness of their heart, and they don't mind the extra money. So with that being said, I'm going to promise three things. One, we are going to have youth sports officials when they are required for a game. Football, baseball, basketball, lacrosse, field hockey, etc. It's an essential part of what we do, so we will have them. Second thing, I'll guarantee you that some of them are going to be okay. Some of them might be good. I'm going to guarantee you a third thing, and you can probably see where I'm going with this. Some of them aren't going to be so good. In fact, some of them might have a really bad day while they're working one of your kids' games. So, bonus prediction is that there's a likelihood that they make a mistake and your child's involved, and maybe even cost your child team a game, at least in your perspective as a parent. And I say that now because there's a chance that will happen, and if you expect it to happen, and I think you can better prepare yourself for that, and I'm asking you to prepare yourself for that, because the expectations are from us, when that happens, is to act like an adult and not scream at the official. It's just not acceptable behavior. Over the years, Andy and AJ and myself and all of the other colleagues I've ever run into within recreation would say, oh, the heat of the moment. Well, you know what, the heat of the moment is one thing, but we're going to take the high road and trump heat of the moment with being a mature adult. So that's what we're asking. That's our expectation. Expect it to happen, and then when it does happen, take the high road and don't yell at them. Now, when I personally think that's a great opportunity to support your child, and we learn life lessons through sports, and I think some of the other speakers have probably brought that up. And what a great lesson to teach through sports is that life isn't fair, and you don't always get the things that you think you deserve or that you were completely wronged in a certain situation. How many of us have been wronged in life? And obviously everybody would raise their hand. Everybody has had something happen like that. This is an opportunity to explain that to your child. Who's been in a fender bender at the grocery store? You're not even in your car, you come out and your car's been dinged up. That's 100% not your fault, and yet that's what happened. In this circumstance, an official makes a mistake, it's not your fault, and it's not your child's fault, and it's not the coach's fault, and it's part of being in sports, and it's part of being in life, and we ask people, we're asking you to take that opportunity and teach that lesson when that occurs. I will say that our obligation as a department is to hire capable officials, so we're not hiring anybody that we don't think is capable. If we require certification, they're certified. We also, and I got confirmation from AJ that we're trying to hire people that are professional and polite, capable of doing the job. In other words, they can get up and down the court or field, whatever the case may be. But it doesn't mean they're not going to miss calls. So when that happens, remember what we talked about today, and take the high road. And if you think maybe somebody, maybe it's your spouse or a brother, uncle, whatever, that's going to go down that road and start complaining about the officials, I think the best thing to do is change the topic. And if you need a way to change your topic, how about, I got dinosaur sheets? Huh? Told you that was funny, Andy.
All right, awesome. That is funny, John. The dinosaur sheet reference. John, thank you so much for taking time today to share your experiences about officiating. I think it's going to be really impactful to the folks out there.